The conference room hummed with quiet tension as Jay Park studied the holographic image of Xerxes 9, a planet that had become legendary for its impossible conditions. Her fingers traced the swirling patterns of toxic atmospheres and volatile geological zones that had defeated every known civilization's colonization attempts. The Galactic Exploration Council had presented her with what most considered a career-ending assignment. Xerxes 9 wasn't just another challenging planet, it was a planetary nightmare that had crushed the hopes of hundreds of advanced civilizations. Probe after probe had failed. Research teams had been completely obliterated by its harsh environment. This planet defies everything we know about planetary development, the council director had told her weeks earlier. His holographic image had flickered with a mixture of challenge and dismissal. No one expects you to succeed. We're giving you this mission because someone has to document the final failure. Jay understood the subtext. This was a punishment assignment, designed to end her promising career in planetary engineering. At 35, she was already considered one of the most innovative researchers in her field. Her previous work on adaptive environmental systems had earned her multiple prestigious awards, but this assignment felt different. The planet's data scrolled across multiple screens. Temperatures that could melt advanced metallic compounds. Atmospheric pressures that crushed traditional exploration equipment. Geological instability that made volcanic regions look stable by comparison. Radiation levels that would kill most known life forms within minutes. Most researchers would have walked away. Most would have submitted a report explaining the impossibility of the mission. But Jay Park was not most researchers. She remembered her grandmother's words, "Impossible is just a word people use when they're too afraid to try." Those words had guided her through multiple challenging projects, pushing the boundaries of planetary engineering. Her small team watched her carefully. Do-Hyun Kim, the environmental specialist, kept adjusting his digital readings. Eun-ji, their biochemical expert, was running complex simulations that seemed to crash repeatedly when analyzing Xerxes 9's fundamental chemical composition. "We're going to approach this differently," Jay announced, her voice calm and steady. The room fell silent. She pulled up a complex holographic model that showed microscopic adaptable nanosystems. These weren't standard terraforming tools. These were experimental technology she had been developing in secret for years, systems that could potentially interact and modify planetary environments at a fundamental molecular level. The team exchanged glances. They knew this was more than just another mission. This was a potential breakthrough that could revolutionize how humanity approached planetary colonization. Xerxes 9 had defeated civilizations with technology thousands of years more advanced than human capabilities. It had multiple layers of environmental hostility that seemed designed to prevent any form of life from existing. Acid storms that could dissolve traditional exploration suits. Magnetic fields that could disable electronic systems within seconds. Ground temperatures that could melt advanced research equipment. But Jay saw something different. Where others saw an impossible challenge, she saw an opportunity to prove that human innovation could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Her preliminary calculations suggested a 0.03% chance of success. Most researchers would have considered those odds hopeless. For Jay, it meant there was still a chance. The mission wasn't just about transforming a planet. It was about challenging the fundamental understanding of planetary development. It was about proving that human determination could rewrite scientific limitations. As she finalized the mission parameters, Jay knew this would be the most challenging project of her career. Xerxes 9 wasn't just a planet. It was a testament to the resilience of human innovation. The team began final preparations, each member understanding the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. They weren't just planning a mission. They were preparing to challenge the very definition of what was possible. Xerxes 9 waited, unchanged and unforgiving, holding its planetary secrets close, unaware that a small human team was about to challenge its entire existence. The first landing on Xerxes 9 was nothing like anyone had anticipated. The planetary surface looked like a nightmare landscape of broken rocks and swirling chemical storms. Do-Hyun Kim watched in silent horror as their primary landing module began to corrode the moment it touched the ground. Systems failing, the computer announced in a calm voice that felt completely inappropriate given their circumstances. Radiation levels were spiking beyond anything their protective suits could handle. The ground itself seemed alive with hostile energy, sending electrical discharges that made their equipment spark and malfunction. Jay's hands moved quickly across the control panel, redirecting emergency power and rerouting critical systems. She had prepared for difficult conditions, but Xerxes 9 was proving to be something entirely different. The planet wasn't just inhospitable, it seemed actively designed to destroy any form of exploration. Within the first hour, 2 environmental probes completely disintegrated. Their advanced titanium composite casings melted like cheap plastic in the planet's caustic atmosphere. Chemical reactions were happening so rapidly that their monitoring equipment couldn't even record the complete sequence of events. "We're losing ground systems," Unji reported, her voice tight with controlled panic. "The molecular composition is changing faster than our sensors can track." What made Xerxes 9 truly terrifying wasn't just its harsh environment. It was the planet's apparent ability to adapt and resist any technological intervention. Each probe they sent seemed to trigger complex defensive reactions from the planetary ecosystem. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly. One moment, surface temperatures would reach levels that could melt advanced research equipment. The next moment, they would drop so quickly that thermal sensors would freeze and crack. It was as if the planet was playing a deadly game of cat and mouse with their technology. Dohyan's specialized radiation shielding began to show critical failures. The protective layers designed to withstand extreme conditions were breaking down faster than their worst-case simulations had predicted. They were losing equipment at an alarming rate, and they had barely been on the planet for 6 hours. Jay understood something that her team was slowly realizing. Xerxes 9 wasn't just a challenging planet. It was a living system that seemed to have developed complex mechanisms to prevent any external interference. Every technological solution they tried was being systematically dismantled or destroyed. Communication with their orbital support team became increasingly difficult. Signal disruptions caused by the planet's unique magnetic fields meant they were essentially isolated. Each transmission was fragmented, with only partial data getting through. "We need a different approach," Jay muttered, reviewing the rapidly deteriorating mission data. Traditional terraforming techniques were useless here. Their experimental nanosystems were being neutralized almost as quickly as they could be deployed. The team's protective suits were their last line of defense. But even these were showing signs of rapid degradation. Chemical reactions were eating through their advanced polymer layers, creating microscopic breaches that would soon become fatal. Dohyan watched a small research drone get pulled apart by swirling chemical storms. The device seemed to be torn into its component molecules, disappearing in a matter of seconds. It was like watching something being erased from existence. Unji's biochemical analysis revealed something even more disturbing. The planetary ecosystem wasn't just hostile, it was intelligent in a way they couldn't understand. Complex molecular interactions suggested a form of systematic resistance that went beyond simple chemical reactions. Hours passed. Their initial optimism had been replaced by a growing sense of desperation. Xerxes 9 was revealing itself to be more than just a difficult planet. It was a challenge that would test the absolute limits of human technological capability. As night fell, the planetary landscape transformed. Electrical storms created patterns that almost looked like complex communication signals. The ground shifted and pulsed with an energy that felt almost conscious. Jay looked at her team. They were exhausted, their equipment failing, their initial mission plan in complete ruins. But something burned in her eyes, a determination that refused to accept defeat. After 48 continuous hours of failure, everything changed in a single moment. Unji discovered something unexpected while analyzing a microscopic soil sample, a tiny organism that seemed to defy every known biological rule. The microorganism was unlike anything they had ever seen. It existed simultaneously in multiple chemical states, adapting faster than their most advanced scanning equipment could track. Its molecular structure appeared to communicate and transform in ways that challenged fundamental understanding of biological systems. "This changes everything," Unji whispered, her hands trembling as she examined the data. Jay recognized the significance immediately. This wasn't just a simple microorganism, it was a potential key to understanding Xerxes IX's complex ecosystem. The organism showed remarkable abilities to neutralize toxic chemical compounds and rapidly adapt to extreme environmental conditions. Dohyan's initial tests confirmed something extraordinary. When they introduced the modified microorganism into a small test zone, the environmental conditions began to stabilize. Toxic chemical reactions slowed. Temperature variations became less extreme. It was as if the tiny life form was negotiating with the planet itself. The team worked through the next 48 hours without sleep. They developed advanced nanoreplication techniques that could multiply the microorganism while maintaining its unique adaptive capabilities. Each iteration became more sophisticated, more capable of transforming the hostile environment. Xerxes IX seemed to be responding. Areas that were previously considered completely uninhabitable started showing subtle changes. Mineral compositions shifted. Chemical interactions became less volatile. Something fundamental was happening at the molecular level. Jay understood they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just terraforming. This was a complex dialogue between technology and a planetary ecosystem that seemed almost alive. The first visible sign of change came unexpectedly. During a routine scan, Dohyan noticed a microscopic green formation, the beginning of a potential plant-like structure. In an environment that had destroyed every previous attempt at life, this was nothing short of a miracle. Their nanosystems worked differently now. Instead of trying to forcefully change the planet, they were communicating with its existing systems. Each deployment became a complex negotiation, with the microorganisms adapting and responding to the planetary conditions. Unji's analysis revealed that the organism was doing more than just surviving. It was actively restructuring the planetary chemistry. Toxic compounds were being broken down. Radiation levels were gradually decreasing. The impossible was becoming possible. The Galactic Exploration Council would never believe their data. No previous mission had ever suggested that a planetary ecosystem could be transformed so fundamentally. They were rewriting the understanding of planetary development. 72 hours after the breakthrough, something extraordinary happened. The first green shoot emerged from the rocky surface. It was small, barely visible, but it represented something massive. Life was taking hold in a place where life had been considered impossible. Jay looked at her team. They were exhausted, dirty, their equipment barely functioning. But something powerful burned in their eyes. They were no longer just researchers. They were pioneers witnessing a moment that would change human understanding forever. Xerxes IX was beginning to transform. The planet that had defeated countless civilizations was slowly, carefully revealing its secrets. And humanity was finally learning how to listen. The breakthrough wasn't just about technology. It was about understanding that sometimes, transformation requires patience, respect, and the willingness to communicate in ways never before imagined. As the small green shoot continued to grow, Jay knew they had crossed a threshold. Something remarkable was happening. And they were just beginning to understand its true potential. The transformation began accelerating faster than anyone could have predicted. What started as a microscopic change now spread across entire planetary regions with astonishing speed. The nanosystems and adaptive microorganisms were working in perfect synchronization, reshaping Xerxes IX's fundamental chemical and biological structures. Areas once considered completely sterile were now developing complex microecosystems. Rocky surfaces started showing patches of green, tiny organisms creating intricate networks of biological interactions. The planet seemed to be learning, adapting, responding to human intervention in ways no scientific model had ever anticipated. Dohyan's monitoring systems could barely keep up with the changes. Geological structures that had been stable for millions of years were now shifting, creating new landscapes. Toxic chemical zones were being systematically neutralized, replaced by emerging biological systems that seemed to grow more sophisticated with each passing hour. Jay realized they were witnessing something beyond standard terraforming. This was a complete planetary transformation happening at an exponential rate. The nanosystems weren't just changing the environment, they were creating a living, breathing ecosystem that was developing its own complex rules. Unexpected symbiotic relationships began emerging. The modified microorganisms started interacting with native microscopic lifeforms in ways that defy traditional scientific understanding. What appeared to be random interactions were actually intricate communication networks developing across the planetary surface. Temperature regulations began stabilizing. Extreme temperature variations that had previously made the planet uninhabitable were now being controlled by the emerging biological systems. Radiation levels dropped dramatically, creating zones that could potentially support more complex life forms. Unji's biochemical analysis revealed something extraordinary. The planetary ecosystem was developing its own immune-like systems. The nanotechnologies were being integrated into the planet's fundamental structure, not just applied as an external solution. Communication with the Galactic Exploration Council became increasingly challenging. The data they were sending back was so unprecedented that most scientific review boards refused to believe the initial reports. They were describing something that went beyond current scientific understanding. Within weeks, entire regions transformed. Rocky landscapes gave way to emerging vegetation. Complex chemical storms were replaced by regulated atmospheric conditions. The planet was literally rebuilding itself, guided by the carefully designed nanosystems and adaptive microorganisms. Dohayan discovered that the transformation wasn't just surface level. Deep geological structures were being modified, creating new possibilities for potential future colonization. Underground water systems began forming, bringing the potential for more complex ecological development. The team worked around the clock, monitoring the incredible changes. Each hour brought new discoveries, new understanding of how planetary ecosystems could develop and transform. They were no longer just researchers, they were witnesses to a fundamental reimagining of planetary development. Alien research teams began showing intense interest. Reports of the Xerxes 9 transformation spread quickly through scientific networks. What had started as a seemingly impossible mission was now becoming a landmark moment in planetary engineering. Jay understood the broader implications. This wasn't just about transforming one planet. The techniques they were developing could potentially be applied to countless other seemingly impossible planetary environments. They were opening up entirely new possibilities for human exploration and colonization. The emerging ecosystem showed remarkable complexity. What had been a dead planet was now developing intricate biological networks. Microscopic organisms were creating complex communication systems, developing adaptive capabilities that seemed almost intelligent. As the transformation continued, the team realized they were no longer just changing a planet. They were participating in the birth of an entirely new world. Xerxes 9 was becoming something unique, a living system that was developing its own rules, its own potential for future life. The breakthrough went far beyond their initial mission parameters. They weren't just terraforming a planet. They were witnessing the potential of human technology to fundamentally reshape planetary environments. Xerxes 9 was transforming. And humanity was watching, learning, understanding that the impossible was just a limitation waiting to be challenged. 3 planetary cycles after their initial landing, Xerxes 9 had become unrecognizable. Where once existed a dead, hostile world, now sprawled a complex, thriving ecosystem that defied every scientific prediction. J. Park stood on a rocky cliff overlooking vast green landscapes that had previously been molten stone. Massive vegetation networks stretched across horizons, creating intricate ecological systems that pulsed with life. The atmosphere, once toxic and unbreathable, now supported multiple emerging biological structures. Galactic research teams from dozens of civilizations requested observation rights. What humans had accomplished was more than just planetary transformation, it was a complete reimagining of ecological engineering. The Xerxes 9 project became the most studied scientific achievement in recent galactic history. Dohayan's monitoring systems continued tracking the planet's ongoing development. The nanosystems and adaptive microorganisms had created something unprecedented, a self-regulating planetary ecosystem that could potentially support complex life forms. Underground water networks had formed, creating potential foundations for future colonization efforts. The Galactic Exploration Council, which had initially assigned the mission as a potential career-ending punishment, now celebrated Jay and her team as pioneering heroes. Their techniques promised to revolutionize how civilizations approached seemingly impossible planetary environments. Eunji's biochemical research revealed that the transformation went far beyond simple environmental modification. The planet had developed its own complex biological communication networks. Microscopic organisms worked in intricate, almost intelligent patterns, continuously adapting and developing more sophisticated interactions. What made the achievement truly remarkable was how the team had essentially communicated with a planetary ecosystem. Instead of forcing change, they had developed technologies that negotiated and integrated with existing planetary systems. It was less about conquest and more about collaboration. Preliminary studies suggested that the Xerxes 9 model could potentially be applied to hundreds of previously uninhabitable planetary environments. The implications for future human exploration were massive. Planets once considered completely useless could now be potential candidates for colonization. The first research outposts were established. Scientists from multiple civilizations came to study the extraordinary transformation. They walked through landscapes that had been considered impossible just a few years earlier, collecting data and marveling at the complex ecological networks. Jay understood that their achievement was more than a scientific breakthrough. It represented a fundamental shift in how intelligent species could interact with planetary environments. They had proven that with the right approach, patience, and innovative thinking, seemingly impossible challenges could be overcome. The emerging ecosystem showed remarkable diversity. Plant-like structures developed complex root systems that communicated and shared resources. Microscopic organisms created intricate networks that regulated temperature, chemical compositions, and energy distributions. Alien research teams were particularly fascinated by the communication systems developed between the nanotechnologies and the emerging planetary ecosystem. It wasn't just environmental engineering, it was a form of technological dialogue that respected and integrated with existing systems. As planetary cycles passed, Xerxes 9 continued to develop. Each monitoring report revealed new complexities, new potential for life. What had started as a seemingly impossible mission had become a testament to human innovation and adaptability. The team's approach challenged fundamental scientific understanding. They had shown that planetary transformation wasn't about conquering an environment, but about understanding and collaborating with it. Their technologies didn't impose change, they facilitated natural development. For Jay, Do-hyun, and Eunji, the achievement was more than a professional milestone. It was a profound statement about human potential. They had taken a planet that had defeated countless civilizations and transformed it into a thriving, living world. As the sun set on Xerxes 9, casting golden light across emerging landscapes, Jay reflected on their journey. From an impossible assignment to a galactic milestone, they had rewritten the rules of planetary exploration. The planet that no one believed could support life was now a beacon of hope, a symbol of what human determination and innovative thinking could achieve. Xerxes 9 was no longer just a planet. It was a promise of possibilities.